Hello, this is Paul Frazier again, and I have a friend here, Craig Drosdak, and he's been on Linda Eastburn's. I think you've been on there twice, haven't you?
Yes,
Been
I
interviewed, if
think
I
so. Yeah.
heard. I
Yes.
think it's called Bigfoot of the Appalachians. Is that the name of the one?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Uh, I guess we'll just go ahead and start with you just telling about how you kind of got interested in it, and then we'll get into what happened here recently.
All right. I have. It was about 10 years ago. I was up in the Catskill Mountains of New York on a hiking trip with an old girlfriend of mine, and we were in the middle of nowhere. We were probably about 6 miles off any trail that we were aware of. We literally went beyond where we should have. Um, Really simply, I looked down. I saw a footprint that was probably about 16 inches, 16 inches long. And at that point, I don't think I really even believed in Bigfoot, or if I even thought about it, it would be like, Pacific Northwest or something like that. When I looked down at this and I realized that there's nobody around us, for miles, and I saw this barefoot footprint, and it was every bit of, 16 inches long. It all of a sudden just had hair stand up on my body, and I just realized this isn't fake. There's got to be something here. Um, it really did it scared the daylights out of me, but also it intrigued the heck out of me to say, you know what, these are here, and it's not the Pacific Northwest. This is upstate New York. Even though I'm not even from there, I just was visiting there. I just happened to find this. Um, it became a thought of mine that I'm gonna try to investigate this a little bit more. And I started going to. I'm back in Ohio, and I'm starting to go to a few of these state parks and so forth. That, um, as you're as well aware that you're aware of, Salt Fork, um, Piedmont, Clendenning, Tappan, the lakes that are all within the Muskingum watershed district up in there. Um, I just feel like I've had so many experiences up in there. I started out as just a fisherman, but I fish for catfish. I fish at night, and just sitting out there in the middle of nowhere, you know, on some of these other lakes. Salt Fork, I know, has an unlimited horsepower. So I mean, it's a party lake. There's skiers, there's boaters, there's people dragging canoes, partying, and all that kind of stuff. If you get into some of these other lakes, off to the side, a lot of them have a 10 horsepower limit. They're literally strictly fishing lakes. There's really no traffic on these lakes at all, and there's been many times that if you even going up there in during the week, you may not see another boat all day. Um, it's even worse at night. You go out there at night, there's nobody out there, and we went up we went up on July 13th, or actually we went up July 12th, left the 14th. And while we were up there at night, we only saw one other boat the entire time. And this is a several mile long lake, and there was just nobody out there. And I always feel like I want to go to these other places rather than Salt Fork, because I feel there's just no, human traffic up in here. And I could probably say I've had at least 60 or 70 experiences, whether it be rocks being thrown at me, whether it be, one time just moving along in a canoe, and I had a tree trunk that was every bit of, you know, 8 inches around, but it was 10 feet long, and it literally come out of the trees and dropped right in front of my canoe. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. There's nobody out here. Okay. There's nothing in these woods that are going to be able to throw a log, let alone even a human.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that just went,
Well,
okay.
tell
Yeah.
about the time when you got out of your canoe and pulled it up onto the bank and looked around. Tell about that
Oh
one.
my gosh. Um, I still, these things have to have some sort of sense of humor. I literally have a canoe, and I pulled it up on the bank to go into an area that I had a couple rocks thrown at me a couple months before. So I went up into this area. I pulled my canoe up onto the bank, and I'm talking, I pulled it up onto the bank. It was not like laying in the water. It was not, dangling or anything. The whole canoe was up on the shore to where there was not any part of this this canoe in the water. I didn't tie it because I knew that it wasn't going to go anywhere. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was beautiful sunny day, no wind. There wasn't even a ripple on the water. Okay. And I go up into this area, and I tried to set up a couple trail cams, and I got up into the area. When I first walked, it's weird because I first walked, as soon as I got the boat up there, I heard a noise off to my left, and it seemed like it was about 50 yards off to the left. I heard a noise. It was kind of just a little small tree break or something, but I didn't really pay much attention to it or anything. So I went ahead and I put one trail camera up, and I walked up into this area, and it was several hundred yards up a hill, and I got into an area that I was like, okay, there are so many broken tree branches up here. There's, like teepee poles up there and so forth. And then this is in such a pristine area, beautiful sunny day, nothing around that really disturbing me or anything. And all of a sudden I smell what I literally felt like I was standing in the middle of a city dump. The smell was just overwhelming, that like it was almost hard to breathe. So I had already been up there about 50, I would probably say about 50 minutes at that point. And I think by the time I got back down, it was probably close to an hour. But as I was coming back down the hill, when I smelled it, I went, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here because that it can see me, but I can't see it. And at that point, I started getting a little, weary. So I started walking back down the hill. And at this point, I still can't even see like where my canoe is or anything like that. And I'm walking down the hill, and I'm literally thinking to myself, my canoe better be there. And as I'm walking down the hill and I'm getting closer to the water, I look out, and my canoe is literally in the middle of this cove. It was pushed off. It is sitting in the middle. There's no ripples on the water. It's just sitting there nice and calmly, but it's 30 yards off the bank. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And so at that point, I took my boots off. The water, the water was only probably like 3 foot deep at the most to where I had to go out to. But I took my boots off and stuff, and I walked out there. I got my canoe. I walked it back, and I didn't even put my boots back on. I literally just put them in the canoe, and I started leaving, and I kept looking back. I didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. And all I know is there had to be a couple of them just sitting there laughing their heads off at me, because there was nothing that could have moved this. There's absolutely nothing. There's no wind, no nothing, period. And I walked back down there. I mean, I was right in their area, right into their living room. And I got back, and my canoe is pushed out into the middle of the bay. And at that point, I went ahead. I went back out there. I left the area. I came back that evening, and I just kind of parked myself about 30 yards off the bank. And I was there. It just got dark. It's probably only been dark for like a half an hour. And all of a sudden I hear a big rock splash right behind my boat, probably 20 yards behind my boat. It was a significant rock. It was not just plunk. It was splash. And I hit my recorder. I don't have any vision or anything. It's dark as hell. So I clicked my recorder to see if I can get another rock splash or if it yells or something like that. And a second rock comes out and literally hits the back edge of my canoe. And it was a big rock, because it literally like thumped the boat and rocked me. And I don't think it actually pulled up on the recorder because I screamed so loud like a girl because I couldn't believe I was just like, ah, like what the hell just happened? I'm expecting another rock somewhere in the water and it hits my canoe. At that point, I will say, I vowed I'm not going here by myself anymore, because if that rock could have been 2 feet higher or something like that, I would have been dead. Nobody would have known. And so at that point, I realized I'm not going to, I'm not going to do this anymore by myself. So ever since then, I've taken somebody with me. Usually it's my son. I've taken both my daughters with me. My son's 28. My daughters are 19. I've taken them with me. They've all had experiences and they've all heard the encounters and so forth, just like I have. I have personally seen 7 from a distance. My son has seen, I believe, 5. My daughters have had just encounters. They haven't seen any, but they've actually had encounters. They've literally, like, as we're pulling up to a bank or something, and all of a sudden there's a tree snap 50 yards away from you as you're pulling up there. This is middle of the day. Okay. It's not something that, there's going to be somebody up there that's snapping tree branches and stuff like that. So my kids have been involved in this. A lot of people ask me, like, why do you have so many experiences? Well, I'll be straight up honest and say, I go where they are, or where I believe they are.
You're there a lot.
And I really feel like the amount of experiences and stuff that I've had in many of these places is because of the numbers of Bigfoot that are there. I'm not even, man, I don't know if I should actually admit this, but I'm gonna. We've had experiences all over the lake. It would not even remotely surprise me. The lake's several miles long. If you have an experience on one side of the lake and immediately go to the other side of the lake and have another experience, that thing's not running several miles, or swimming across. There's other ones on the other side. It would not even faze me to think that there could be 100 of them literally around this one lake alone, because they're in all points of, almost every peninsula of the lake has a hill that goes up the top. And it's almost like each one of these hills has some activity on it. I don't know if it's a different family. I don't know if it's a different family of Bigfoot, if it's the same family. I've always heard that they travel or they live in groups of 3 to 5 in a family or something like that. But there are so many places on this lake that these experiences are happening. And I just feel like they're all over. And
I wanted to explain, like where you were talking about with the canoe, because I've been there with you, and we'll talk about that too. But
absolutely,
when you go out, like you're talking about on this lake, and you stop at one of these spots, it's not like there's hiking trails. There's a road nearby. This is like very secluded areas and very rugged terrain. There's no people walking around in those areas. You can only get to it by boat most of the places, because it's thick woods for a long ways around this lake.
There's actually a lot of it on the south end of the lake. There's a lot of the areas that aren't even accessible by boat. In fact, there's a lot of them that are canoe only, because the water, as you get towards the south end of the lake, the water may only be a foot deep. You're not going to get in there with any kind of boat. Even your trolling motor is going to be dragging the bottom. So there's a few places that, like, if we know we're going to go into these areas, we'll take a canoe versus a boat, because we know we're going back into these areas. But the experience that we had last month was just so surreal. I can't even It's 92 degrees out right now, and the hair is standing up on my arms. It's not because I'm cold. It's because I can't even have this conversation without the hair standing up on my body, because it was just so surreal, so profound, that this is something that'll never, ever, ever leave my brain as long as I live. Just I'll give you a small start off of how we approached it and so forth. Me and my son, we go out, and what we do is we decide we're going to catfish. That is the one thing. This is some of the greatest catfishing on the planet. So what we do is we park our boat like 20 to 30 yards off the bank. And we're in a very secluded area and so forth. And we park our boat and we just cast out and we just sit there and wait. We went up there July 12th, 13th, and 14th. And we spent 2 full nights up there. And both nights we changed spots. The first night we changed spots 3 times. The second night we changed spots twice. So we had 5 different areas that we stopped in order to fish. Now, the fishing is just secondary in this aspect. Yes, we actually catch fish, so it's actually pretty cool. But in the same aspect, all we're doing is we're waiting to see if they come up behind us, okay? Because we know that they're watchers. And with all the experiences, we want to see if they're going to throw something at us, if they're going to yell at us or something like that. So we just sit there quietly. On 3 of the 5 places that we stopped, and these were all over in different areas, completely different areas of the lake. On 3 of the 5 areas that we were sitting, each area we sit for about 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. But when we're sitting there, it's noisy. It's hard to believe how noisy it is in the wilderness with crickets and owls and all those kind of things. But it's actually pretty noisy when you're sitting there at night. And so literally the first place that we stopped, we were there for about an hour and a half, and all of a sudden, all crickets stopped. There was no noise. It was mind-blowing. You could hear the crickets over, on the far end over here. You could hear them across the lake. You could hear them, a couple hundred yards down from you. But everything behind you for about 100 yards or 50 yards both ways and behind you, everything stopped. I don't know what these things have that they can make the crickets stop, but they did. And all of a sudden, everything just gets perfectly quiet. And we're just listening. And we hit our recorder, hoping that, one yells or one throws something, and nothing. All we hear, just very lightly, footsteps. And they'll walk a little bit, they'll stop. And they'll walk a little bit and they stop. And it's bipedal. It's not a deer. But all 3 of the times that we stop, crickets stopped. We hear the footprints behind us, or the footsteps behind us. They never were aggressive. They never tried to say anything. They never tried to throw anything at us or anything like that. We just felt like they watched us.
Yeah, just checking you out.
Literally just checking us out. So we would wait there for a little while. The crickets would start back up again. And at that point, we just kind of figured, all right, they moved off. So we'd go find another spot, rebait up, throw out like we always do. But yeah, 3 out of the 5 places we had crickets stop. They came up behind us. I don't know if there was more than one. Just basically heard footsteps. And you just knew that there's something back there watching you. But you can't turn around and see them or anything like that. I have infrared, I have night vision and so forth. But every time that we pull that stuff out, it seems like everything disappears. I don't know if they see infrared like we see flashlights. I don't know. But it seems like every time we pull that stuff out, they just disappear. So we're doing what we tried to just use audio, to hear if we could just see if we can hear something versus, trying to, see something, on, an infrared and so forth. So we were just doing that. And we have we have um we have spotlights that we use, and I have a floodlight that it'll go like 50 yards side to side, 50 yards high. And if you shine this, like, and we may be like 20 or 30 yards off the bank. So when we shine it up in there, it lights up pretty much it lights up a lot of stuff, but mostly all you can see is eye reflection. They don't seem like they're intimidated by it because they still stand there and stare at you. But then you hit them with the big spotlight, and it's like, ooh, oh, a deer. Okay. Oh, there's a raccoon. Oh, there's 5 raccoons. Look at that. There's a whole bunch of them there. So, I mean, throughout the night, I mean, we're seeing, hundreds and hundreds of eye shines and stuff like that. And we're spotting each one of them. Yeah, it's a bunch of deer, raccoons, possums, everything you can possibly imagine. We were, not that I'm going to say I remember. It was 4:42 in the morning. It was 4:42 in the morning, and we were coming around a corner, and my son, I'm running a trolling motor, and so it's electric. There's no noise. I'm literally running a mile an hour, 20 yards off the bank, and we're just like cruising slowly. I'm just maneuvering around, some of the trees that are falling in the water and stuff like that. And he's doing all the spotlighting and stuff like that. And he'll go eyes, and I look up, and then he hits the spotlight, and that's a big deer, And so this is what we were doing, like throughout the night as we're going around. This is kind of what we're doing. We come around a corner, and I'm doing the remote, trying to keep, just trying to keep the boat where we're away from the fallen trees and stuff like that. And he yells, eyes. And I start to turn around, and he yells, oh shit, it's right there. And I turned, and as I turned and looked, all I saw was this thing turning and moving into the woods. I did see red hair. I saw a half a face because he was turning, and I caught him from here out. I did see a white face, maybe olive complected. My son immediately said, it looked human. He threw this thing. He threw the spotlight up on it, hit him right in the face with it. And that was his first thing. He said it was covered in long red hair. Body was covered, but the face had no facial hair. And he said it looked human. Eyes, nose, mouth, exactly where they're supposed to be. Didn't look animalistic by any means. He said that was his first impression, was it looked human. And he did say it looked human because the face was white. It was a very pale face. I'm going to back up. I'm going to back up a hair on this one. Okay. I have to, because it's going to lead into what we did. And
I got the pictures here when you're ready for those, but
oh my God, man, it's 2 years ago. Me and my son were out. We pulled our canoe up on the bank, and he starts walking up the bank, and he said he was going to the bathroom. And I waited about 5, 6, 7 minutes, and he didn't come back. And I was just like, and honestly, we shit you not, this was 4:30 in the morning. Okay. So it's literally the same time, 2 years before, a little bit different, probably a mile from where we were at. He walks up there to go to the bathroom, and he didn't come back down. And I thought, all right, I'm going to have to go up there, and I'm going to see where he's at. I go walking up there, and as I'm walking up the hill, I see him standing there. All we have is 50 lumen headlights. Okay. We have nothing else. We have no big spotlights. This is 2 years ago. We have no spotlights. We didn't know really what we were doing at that point. I walk up there, and he's like dead serious staring at me. And I'm walking up to him, and he goes, so I walk right up to him, and I go, what's the matter? And he goes, there's one about 15 feet inside these woods right here, and he is stalking me. He is walking step for step. Every time I take a step, he takes a step. And I was like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "I'm dead serious." And I said, "Well, take a couple steps." He took 5 steps fast. This thing took 5 steps fast. He slammed on the brakes, and this thing took a 6th step. At that point, I just literally turned around. I went, "Oh, hell no." And I started walking back towards the boat. And he goes, "Hey." And I go, "Dude, he's right there." And he goes, "Let's go in after him." I was like, "You're out of your mind." I said, "All we have is this. We have nothing." He goes, "You've waited your whole life for this, and this is what you're gonna walk away?" I was like, "Casey, we have nothing." I said, "What if it's a 10-footer?" And he goes, "Well, I'm gonna keep walking. I'm gonna see if he follows me." And I was like, "You're fine, man. I'm going back to the boat." Yeah, I felt like a dumbass at that point because my son really wanted to go in, and I said, "No, I'm not going in." I fine. I was chicken at that point. So we literally, so fast forward, he throws a spotlight up on this thing, and it was only visible. He saw it for about 4 seconds. I saw it for about 2. When he hit the spotlight, it threw its hands up, and he said it had white palms of his hands, like the arms were hairy, but it threw its hands up in front of its face and started to turn. And when it dropped its hands, it looked back. It looked back at us, and then walked straight into the woods. And I saw it kind of looking back. I didn't see the straight on. I saw it looking back a little bit. And when it took 2 steps up into the woods, it sounded like an elephant going up into the woods. It literally did. And I'm just like, "You gotta be kidding me." So at that point, I'm spinning the boat around. I'm like, I immediately tried to turn the boat around. I'm only going 1 mile an hour with a trolling motor. So it wasn't as fast as I would have liked it. But we spin back around, and my son says to me, he goes, "It had no facial hair. It's got to be a juvenile." Okay, here's my dumbass thought. "Hey, you're right." He goes, "Let's go after it." Knowing in the back of my head, I told my son, I felt guilty about the last time when he said, "Let's go in after it." I'm still sitting there thinking of the same thought that he said. Well, it doesn't have any facial hair. It's probably a juvenile. I ran the boat right into the bank. I ran the boat into the bank. He jumps off, throws the lights up into the woods, and they took off. And it sounded, at that point, we realized there was at least 2 because they went in different directions, and they sounded like elephants going through these trees, just crashing, breaking, and just, loud as can be is them just crashing through the trees. We're just hair still standing up on my arm. We're just standing there like, what just happened? We weren't there for probably, they were gone. And I mean gone. No noise, anything after 10 seconds. That's all it took them to get out of there. What I did notice is that on the far right side, where one of them went this way, one of them went straight up the hill, one of them went across a ravine. I heard the one moving this way, and then just off to the other side of it, I heard another tree break. There may have been 3 of them at that time. We had no clue. We had absolutely no clue whatsoever. And as right before I ran the boat into the bank, we could hear them stand. I heard one, and it sounded like he was kicking gravel or something. And it wasn't coming all the way down to the water. It was just like coming down the hill. But there was like gravel or, bark, whatever. It just sounded like he was kicking stuff down the hill. And this was literally seconds before I ran it into the bank. We heard him move across and then move back. And that's when we heard the second group kicking stuff off. And that's right when we hit the bank, and they took off in different directions.
Hmm.
So that was like I said, 4:42. Because we happened to look down. I just literally looked down. I was like, what the hell time is it? Saw 4:42, and we knew that from the night before and stuff that it starts getting light enough to where you can actually start seeing stuff at about 5:10, 5:15, right in there. So as we're coming back down back into the boat, we're starting to see that tiny bit of light coming in. So we backed off and we left the bank, but we stayed right in that area. So we sat there just trying to figure out what just happened. What did we just see? What on earth? What was going on? As the sun started coming up, we went back. Sorry, excuse me. We went back to the exact same area. We tried to get exactly the same distance off the bank, and we took photos of exactly the area that we saw.
Can you see it? I brought it up here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That white thing hanging down, the white thing that's hanging down directly in the center of the picture. When he hit it with a spotlight, I remember seeing that, and I used that as what I used as my marker of where the top of his head was. Okay. So we took a picture of that, and I told my son, I said, I want you to draw like an outline of what you saw, like where the head, the shoulders, and so forth. That was exactly the picture right there of where it was. So I said, I want you to draw. So he drew in yellow what was where he saw that thing standing, and that is exactly perfect. So I drew mine without looking at his. I drew mine, which was the red one, and the reason my shoulders aren't as wide is because I believe that I saw him turning. Okay, and I think I caught him as he was turning, going into the woods.
Yeah, they're pretty close, but you're drawing.
So my son, so we decided we're going to go back in there, and we went to the exact same spot. There's really nothing to stand on. It literally was the bank. So my son is 6'4", and he went over and stood right where it is. That picture is absolutely perfect. He is 6'4". His hand right now is just over 7 feet tall. There was nothing else for this thing to stand on back there. And at that point, when we took this picture and we're looking at it afterwards, we realized this thing could have been 8 or 9 feet tall. This thing was at least 8 feet tall. And if we would have known that it was that big, there's no way on this planet we would have went running in after it. There's no way. But we don't regret it. We don't regret it. But at the same time, we had no comprehension that it was that big. It happened so fast. It moved so quick. And
well, plus the width. I mean, if your outline here, if that's pretty close to the width,
man, his shoulders had to be 4 feet wide, 4.5 feet wide.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Compared to your son, it's giant.
Yeah, and it's funny because despite having seen, several of them, we've seen them all from a distance or at night with an eye shine or something like that, but we've never seen anything up close. So this was just unbelievable in that. I honestly, I feel like it might have been a once in a lifetime, once in a 1 in a million sighting and so forth. It's not going to keep us from not going back. So, but yeah, it was so surreal. It's happened so fast. Neither one of us, we literally, like we excuse me, we ended up leaving later that afternoon, going back home, and it was like a 4-hour drive going back home. And we both literally sat. Once I got home and he got back home, we were texting each other all night. We didn't sleep for like 30 hours afterwards. We just couldn't. We just were so mind blown of what just happened. So yeah, it was really just the most surreal encounter that we could have even imagined. It's going to be hard to kind of go there and say, we want to do this again, because I'm not sure that, something that profound is going to happen to somebody twice in their lifetime. I mean, you know, I'll be lucky. I'll be lucky if it does. But
Yeah.
Paul, it was mind blowing, and we really think they're all over the place up there. The park rangers don't talk about it. They just, you know, it's hard to. You can't. It's hard to go into the park ranger's office and go, "Hey, do you guys have Bigfoot around here?" No, I don't know what you're talking about. You
So
know,
you can do that at Salt Fork. At Salt Fork, they'll say, "Well, yeah, we just had somebody talk about seeing one last month."
Yeah, you know, I've asked the park rangers out there, and they're like, "Well, people see stuff all the time, but you know, we don't have an answer for it." You know,
it was a bear.
Yeah, it might have been a bear, even though there's, you know, if you ask the locals in that area, they haven't seen a bear there in 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's just there's no bears around there. You know, so you know, thinking it's a bear is I think it's kind of ridiculous. But I guarantee you, it's there's no human that's gonna, you know, be out in a Bigfoot costume in the middle of the night with no lights. Okay,
Yeah.
and so
and that terrain is up straight up.
Yeah. Well, the kicker was we went back after it got light. It was probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. And so we went right into exactly the area that we were at. We started walking up this hill. It is nothing but sticker bushes. It's thicket. It's through there. It was probably about 200 yards to the top of the hill. And then it starts cresting out a little bit. So it doesn't, you know, it flattens out towards the top. We didn't even make it to the top, and it took us almost 20 minutes to get there. And we're in boots and pants and everything else, just trying to maneuver our way up this hill through the sticker bushes and everything else. And yet they disappeared in 10 seconds. 10 seconds, they were gone. They were up at the top of the hill and gone. And it took us 20 minutes to not even get to the top of that hill, walking in boots and jeans. And, you know, and we're both in, you know, we're good conditioned people, you know, we're healthy and, you know, we have good cardio. We can do that, you know, but it took us 20 minutes to get up there and they were gone in 10 seconds. It truly was the most just surreal thing that's ever happened. So man, I don't even, we have more questions now asking, why are there giant, hairy people living amongst us and nobody's saying anything? Nobody's saying anything.
Have you ever seen the movie Last of the Dogmen?
No.
It's a good movie. I don't want to ruin it in case you want to watch it, but I'll just give you the gist of it. It's basically about a tribe of Native Americans that nobody knew existed. Lived in a really remote area of Montana, and nobody knew they were there. So, I mean, when I saw that movie, it just makes me think about, you know, that just because the Native Americans always called them another tribe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you know as well as I do, you get out deep in those woods, you could hide from anybody out there. I mean,
absolutely.
If you want to stay hid. And that's what makes me think it was letting you see it. I mean, it didn't have to stand out in the open. I think it's getting to know you because you've been there so much. It kind of, I'm sure it recognizes faces.
I do believe that. I do believe that in a way. I feel like, why have I seen 8 when, you know, a lot of people don't see any at all? Why do I, you know, when I go into these areas, I know a lot of people that go into these areas, they always have a gun on them. You know, they want to protect themselves. They, you know, they have all kind of, you know, camera equipment and all that kind of stuff. I just go natural. I pose no threat to them. I don't go in there with an attitude that, you know, I'm going to find these things, you know, and I'm going to, you know, hunt them down or whatever. I go in there with an attitude that of I want to see what's here. You know, I don't want to pose any threat to them. If, you know, I go in there with I'm on their turf. Okay. I'm in their neighborhood. Okay. If they want me out of there, they'll get me out. Okay. They've thrown stuff at me before.
Yeah.
that made me leave. So I know that they can get me out of there when they want. Why do I see more than other people do? Why do I have more experiences than other people do? I don't know. I don't know
That
if it's,
one,
yeah.
that one may have been standing there saying, "Hey, Bob, isn't that the one you shoved his canoe in the water?"
Isn't that the one you shoved his canoe in the water?
Yeah.
I'm with you, man. I'm there. Paul, I don't know, man. I'm just trying to figure out, like, I don't know what they are. I mean, there's people always say they come up with, new animals every year, you know,
Yeah.
5, 6, 7, 8, 10 new animals every year. Most of them come out of the Indonesian jungle or something like that, but they do find new animals. The reason that they're not that they don't discover this is, I honestly, it's not an animal. I don't believe it's an animal one bit. I believe it's some sort of Neanderthal humanoid. You heard like some of their DNA comes back 93% or 97% human.
Yeah.
Okay, it, I don't think it's an animal, and I think literally by these rangers saying, no, I don't know what they are. I literally just think that's them covering it up. They're letting them survive. That's where they live. As long as they protect them, as long as they don't tell people that they're there, they have the ability to survive there. They have the ability to thrive, and they can sit there and even though honest people and honest people see them and report it, they don't ever they don't report them further because they just let it go and they say, all right, well, we're hearing what you say, but we can't say anything. And it's the I don't know if that's the cover up that keeps them protected. Is that the whole purpose of the cover up, is just to keep them protected?
Yeah. I wondered that about just like national parks, if that isn't just because they know they exist and they want to be able to have areas where they're protected and be able
Absolutely.
to live.
If it's a human, then that's absolutely a necessity.
Mhm.
You wouldn't, if you believe it's a human, you're not going to want others to know that this thing's out there, because other people aren't going to believe that. They're going to think it's some wild ape or something like that, and you have no idea who's going to go in there, try to kill one, who's going to you know and so forth. So I
Well,
guess in those circumstances, of protecting them in that aspect, I'm all for it. Fine,
back
let
in
them do it.
I think it was in 1958, Jerry Crew is the one that had he was building a logging road. He had a company where they did roads for the logging companies in Northern California, and they came into the camp in the morning, and all their stuff was scattered around, and they saw these giant footprints all over the place. That's where the term Bigfoot came from. Is the reporter that
Sure.
came said that whatever it was had a big foot, and that's where. But
Right.
when it hit the news, all these hunters showed up, and when they showed up, Jerry Crew ended up telling them that he hoaxed it all, that he made the prints himself because he didn't want him getting shot.
Yeah.
He didn't. He
No,
didn't want the hunters going after him.
I can see that. Yeah. I have a lot of questions. I will say, I asked my son, I said, can I do this podcast with Paul? Um, do I have your permission to do it? And he said, absolutely. He said, yeah, go ahead. He said, wait till next week though, because we're both going, we're going back up next Wednesday and Thursday.
Oh yeah.
We're going back up where we only get one night this time, but we're going to take casting materials. We're going to go right up into there. We're going to literally go up into their living room. We were able to find on Google Maps. There, it looks like there's an area just about a quarter mile from the actual sighting, like straight up the hill, maybe a little bit on top of the hill, a couple hundred yards up, up to the on top of the hill. There looks like an area that is like a flatter area where there's not as dense of trees and so forth. And we're thinking that that could be like possibly their living room. So we're actually going to go up there. Um, we're the only thing that we're gonna have GoPro cameras on. We're gonna have one to the front, one to the back, and
Good idea.
we're gonna take casting material up there. We're gonna try to find footprints and so forth. Um, we've got a couple really cool photographs of just tree breaks and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But we're really gonna go up. We didn't even make it when we went up. We intended to go up up to the top. It took us 20 minutes to get up to the top, and we were just like, this is exhausting.
Oh, I remember when I went with you
Yeah,
how
it's
rugged that
brutal.
hill was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's brutal up in there. This was it. We weren't we weren't on the same hill that you and I were on. We were probably about a half mile away. Um, it was still on that side of the lake, that the northern half of the lake. Um, but yeah, we're gonna go back up and just see what we can come up with. We don't have time to like set up trail cams or anything like that. We're not really gonna try to. We're just going up there to see if we can figure out where they live, get
Well,
some
hopefully you
pictures.
get some rain before them, or maybe
Yeah.
get some prints.
Um,
Have you ever taken any fish that you caught and like hung a fish up along the bank or something for them? See if they
no, I
that might
don't.
be.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, that might. I would. Well, what I would do is bring something where you can hang it like 8 feet in the air, so that way a
Smell goes.
raccoon or something like that's not going to get it hanging on a string, but hanging on a branch about 8 foot up, and you never know. See what happens.
The only thing I've done as far as like what I feel gifting or whatever, there's been twice that the area that you and I went up into, I've left. Don't ask me why. I left two stuffed animals there. Okay, on two different occasions. One of them was missing when we went back. We probably went back about 2 weeks later, and it was missing. Um, the second one that we left was still there. It was just on the ground. So it didn't look like anything had taken that one, but we never found the other one. We never found the first stuffed animal. The cool thing about the stuffed animal was it was one of those wind up ones that played a little melody and stuff. And what we did is we wound it up and then put a little piece of tape on it, and we set it there so that way if somebody moved it, it would
You hear
start
it?
playing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we went back, it was gone. So I don't know. I don't know what whatever happened to it or whatever. But that's the only thing as far as gifting goes or whatever, or trying to use something to
Maybe like a cheap harmonica too, or a little toy
that's cool.
recorder, something
Yeah.
that you might hear it if they start playing with it, messing around with it.
Could you imagine going back out there and hearing one of them things playing your
Yeah,
harmonica
playing
later?
some blues back in.
Yeah, buddy, I would love to get that on. I would love to get that on audio. Yeah, but Paul, it's just it was so surreal to see one up close, a white face. My son said, two eyes, nose, mouth, not like animal features. It was more human like.
Right.
But yeah, it was so surreal. Um,
I'm going to Oklahoma next month. I'm hoping to have a sighting myself. Going up in the Kiamichi Mountains.
Where'd you say, Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Oh wow. But
Yeah.
yeah, I I have more questions now than I had before. I mean, so
Yeah.
but I feel honored to have have been that close to it and seeing it that close. Like I said, I think if I knew it was that big, I don't know if I would have ran into it, ran after it.
Yeah.
But you live by the moment, I guess. That's all we were doing. So
Yeah, I was going to say when you were talking about when your son, you guys got out of the boat and he had to take a leak. That was one of the places I went with you when I
yes.
went, and you showed me
Yes.
that where he was at, and we went back up in there, and there's like a trail that parallels that path
Absolutely.
in the woods there. So
And
yeah,
it was right on a bunch of pine needles, which aren't going to leave footprints.
Yeah,
That's the
or
bad
make
part.
much noise.
They don't make much noise either, but yeah, it
Yeah.
absolutely definitely heard that thing just mimic his steps. Just scared the daylights out of me. He had bigger cojones than I did at the time because he kept walking to see if it would follow him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm out, man. And I was on the canoe, like I was wanting to back out, like off the bank. I was like, I'm gonna feel safer if I'm out here in the water. But he was still up on the bank. I had to wait for him. But but yeah, it was such a surreal experience. And wow,
Well, I wanted to mention that you are from Clark County,
yes,
and you've had some experiences even on our side of the state, and maybe you
absolutely.
could talk about what your daughter had an experience at Inglewood Dam. Maybe you can
Yes, she
mention
did.
talk about that.
My daughter was both of my daughters are cross country runners. They at the time they were running for Northmont High School, and one of the places that they train at and practice at is Inglewood Reserve. And there's this area called Patty Shelter. It's in the backside of the Inglewood Reserve, and her and one of her teammates were running, and it was I think he was a she was a senior at the time, and I think it was a junior cross country runner. It was the guy that she was running with, and they were running along a trail, and a tree broke and literally dropped, literally like 30 feet in front of them. There was no wind, and she actually told the story on one of Linda Eastburn's podcast that there was no wind. It was you know it was 3:30 in the afternoon. They had just got off of school. They had just got out there. It was a sunny afternoon, no wind, nothing, and a tree breaks, and it was a live tree, and it dropped. And she in her heart knew what it was. The guy kind of freaked out a bit, like, "What the heck's going on?" And she goes, "Just keep running, keep running," And they kept running. Um, but there's a lot of tree breaks, and there's a lot of like the big tree arcs and so forth, uh, right in that area. And what I'm finding is that they're very hard to find, but whenever like the county has a sighting or somebody that reports a sighting, I think by law they're supposed to notify the public about it. And Clark County has actually had, what I think, 3 sightings that have been reported just in the last year. Okay, and they come up in, like, it's in the newspaper in the bottom corner of the second to the last page, and it's about this big, and it says there was a Bigfoot. Somebody supposedly had seen a Bigfoot in the Old Reed Park area. Now, you've heard of the Wild Man of Enon, and I like how
Yeah.
they always, they
Yeah.
downplay it. They don't call it the Bigfoot that was sighted in Enon. They call it the Wild Man of Enon. And they downplay it so much that they'll say there was a Bigfoot, that somebody sighted a Bigfoot. Why don't you come out this weekend, and we're gonna bring your children, and you can find the big footprints that we stamped out here, and they make a big game out of it. And they downplay it.
Just play it off. Yeah.
Play it off. Do they actually report it in the newspaper or in some sort of publication? Yes, they do. They do, because I found all 3 of them. But they downplay it and make it a game to where nobody's going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
And bring your family out, and let's find Bigfoot. And they just downplay it. But they actually do put it in publication for the county to see. But there have actually been 3 sightings in Clark County just this year. There's been 2 others there was 2 in Warren County just in the last couple months that hit the newspaper also. So they do put them out there, but they put them in just very inconspicuous places and kind of make a joke out of it, you know, to make people not really want to be, you know, afraid of it. I mean, I don't know what I've personally casted 3 footprint in Clark County, one at CJ Brown Reservoir. It was 15.5 inches. I took it to the ranger station and they were like, wow, that's amazing. That's really cool. Good job.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. They don't report it. They're not going to say anything else. They're not going to tell anybody or anything like that. I casted a right and a left foot of a 16.5 inch footprint about 10 miles from there, back behind a small town called Tremont City. Yeah. I got a right and
along
a left.
the river. Was it along the river?
No, it was probably about 2 miles from the river.
Okay. I used to fish there along the river there.
The Mad River's right there. Yeah. I mean, all that area, they literally could come down into that area. It's not very far at all. You know, that literally could be, you know, one of their areas. But I saw one. It was probably about 10 o'clock at night. I was coming down a road called Willowdale. It was the far north side of Willowdale, and I'm coming down a hill. I come over a hill, and my lights are coming down, and I seen something go across the road, and it looked, honestly, my lights hit it. It looked like a black ghost. I honest to God, that's all I could tell you. It looked like a black ghost going across. It covered an area of about 30 yards in maybe a second and a half. But what I noticed mostly was that there was a telephone pole with a light that it was almost underneath as it was going across. What I noticed was the height of the pole and the light where it was at, and what I saw going across compared to what the height of the pole was every bit of 10 feet. Every bit of 10 feet. It literally was half the size of this pole. And as I'm going back looking at it later, this pole's about 20 feet of pole that you can see. And this thing was half the size of the pole. That is what made me say, all right, it came from that direction. So I actually went, I went down to the end of the road. The next day I went down to the end of the road, went back up about a quarter mile from where I saw this thing go across into a wooded area. And I found probably 10 footprints in a row, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. And I was able to do a left foot and a right foot casting of it. They were both the exact same size. They were both the same depth. There was no alteration in either one of these steps. Every one of these steps, I measured the steps with I took a tape measure out there when I was casting these things. I took a tape measure out there. It was 73 inches from toe to heel, toe to heel, toe to heel, toe to heel. 73 inches every single solitary time. So there was.
What time of year was it?
April 22nd, I believe. Not that I'm keeping track. April. It was. I think it was April 22nd. Yeah. Okay. Of the year before last. So it's been 2022. Yeah, it was. So to know that they're that close to home, never in a million years would I have ever thought that they would be this close to home.
Yeah. And I think they've really learned to adapt and be close to towns.
I almost feel like if you have a patch of woods that's 300 acres or more, that is more than enough to house a family of these, especially if there's no access, or very little access to these areas. It like some of the areas in Clark County, you can go down, going down a back road, turn down another road. You may go 2-3 miles before you hit another road. So you know that you're looking at a couple miles of of woods, and there's no roads going through here. I mean, any one of those places could actually have, be able to hold that.
Well, there was a BFR report. I don't know if you've read it, in a guy in Christiansburg.
Yes.
And he had a 50-acre woods by his house, and he claimed there was a family living in that woods for about 6 months, and then they moved on.
Is Christiansburg? I'm trying to think of where Christiansburg is. That close to Casstown?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm aware of the BFRO. There was one of Casstown, and they had footprints right through the snow. And if I remember right, it's this guy's property is like right across the street from. It's not Ludlow Falls. It's the other one out there. There's another small park out there. Not Carriage Hill. Carriage Hill is Huber Heights.
Well, there's Charleston Falls.
Charleston Falls. It's the Charleston Falls is near Casstown. Apparently, the guy that has the acreage, I heard that was right near Carriage Hill, or right near Charleston.
Yeah. And John Bryant, Glen Helen, all of that area right out there.
I had
territory.
I had an experience earlier this summer out at John Bryant. My daughter, like I said, my daughters both run track and cross country. My daughter now, the experience before, she now runs for Cedarville University, which is butts up against John Bryant Park. And so I've gone out there a few times. She runs out there periodically. And one time I took her out there to run, and I took my dog with me because I was going to take him for a walk through John Bryant while she was running. And my dog is a treeing walker coonhound bloodhound mix. Okay, this dog has a nose better than anything. He will track, he will chase, I've seen him chase coyotes. He doesn't care. We went into the backside of John Bryant Park, and I'm walking my dog, and he just stops dead. And he's staring. He will not move. And I'm like, Zeke, what's the matter? And he wouldn't move. And we have only been out. We literally, and this dog, and he's not even on a leash because I let him run. Okay. Because he's a hound dog. I let him run. That's his exercise. And he'll chase anything. But he always comes back. He listens to me, if I call him and stuff like that. We weren't even out of the truck 5 minutes. Literally, not even 5 minutes. We get him out of the truck. He's like, hey, I'm all over the place. Hey, and then he stops. And I'm like, what's up? Zeke, what's the matter? And he just stood there, and he didn't move. He wouldn't do anything. And he just turned around, and he started walking back towards the truck. And I'm like, oh, crap. He just smelled something. And lo and behold, he jumps right back in the truck, and he would not even get out of the truck.
My dog did that once at Salt Fork. Yeah.
Man. My dog has done that probably 5 or 6 times, and that is kind of why I don't take him back to Piedmont, because I know that I'm not going to be able to go. I can't go into the woods because he's not going with me, because he's not even going to, he won't even get out of the boat. So whenever me and my son go, we go by ourselves. I don't take the dog. If I ever just go fishing and I'm not squatching or something like that, I'll take the dog with me just for company, and he loves to ride in the boat.
Yeah.
But if I'm out there, if I know I'm going to be looking for something, I don't take him with me because I know he's not going to go in there. He just dead stops. He won't go any further. And so.
Yeah, my dog, I take him. I mean, he just loved going in the woods, and
absolutely.
I like you. I don't have him on a leash. I just let him go. And it was about 1 a.m. I drove down to this really remote area there at Salt Fork and got out, and there was a trail there, and I started to head down the trail with him. He's running ahead of me, or not running, but he's just moving along, smelling the ground and stuff. And all of a sudden he just slams on the brakes and turns around and goes right back to the truck. And he wanted in the truck.
Yeah.
So I didn't go down the trail by myself. I just said, okay, maybe. I stayed around. I hung around out there on the road and listened and had my recorder going, but I didn't hear anything. But
yeah. No,
That was
I
odd.
if he won't go in there, then I'm not going in by myself. That's all I know.
Right. I figure he must know something I don't know, so I'll
He
take his
must.
word for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
His nose is better than mine, but
Hey, I got to get you before we get off. I want you to tell that about when you heard the samurai chatter, because you might not think so, but I think you do a really good job on it when you tried to imitate it. You gotta show us that.
man, this was one of my. I'm gonna be honest. Other than seeing the footprint, the second thing that happened to me was I heard what is called the Ohio Howl, and I was out at Clendenning Lake. It was probably midnight, and I hear a howl that was off in the distance. Probably it sounded like it could have been a mile away, but the howl lasted like a solid 30-40 seconds. There was no way it was like a coyote. It was not broken. It was not, arr, arr, arr. No, it was not. It was woo, one noise, 40 seconds, and that I was like, okay, something's there.
Have you ever heard the Ohio Howl? Did it sound like it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it was. The third experience I had was I was out at Salt Fork, and it was the night before I heard the one yell at me. And I was out at Salt Fork. Salt Fork shaped like the letter C, and I was at the very bottom of the C. I was by myself. I'm in a canoe. Nobody's around me. It was a weekday. There's nobody out on this lake, and it was. I think it was September, and I heard a tree break. And I'm not even close to the shore. I'm in the middle of the damn lake just fishing. I hear a tree break, and about 5 seconds later, I hear another tree break exactly the same place. And then about 20 seconds later, a third tree break in the exact same place. And I went, 3 trees don't fall at the same damn time. So at that point, I went, okay, I'm out of here, and I'm just gonna go back. And so I went back to my tent, and I ended up sleeping. So the next day I went out. I went from Salt Fork over to Piedmont. So the next day I get over to Piedmont, and I'm fishing during the day, I'm just fishing. I at this point I'm still not really putting together that Bigfoot is everywhere. And my thought was, okay, well, I'm not at Salt Fork anymore, so I'm not going to have these experiences over here. So that night, it starts getting dark. And about 100 yards behind me, I hear a tree snap. And it was big. It was a big tree, and it dropped into the water. And I guess my rationalization was, why would a beaver drop a tree in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
Why else would a tree fall into the water? So that was probably 10 o'clock. And then probably about 11:30, I hear a big rock splash that's probably about 40 yards behind me, maybe 50 yards behind me. It wasn't nearly as far back as the tree break. I still didn't put the 2 and 2 together. I thought, okay, well, maybe the beaver smacked his tail or something. I don't know. I really wasn't putting the 2 and 2 together at the point. So about 1:30 in the morning, I'm still sitting there. I am by myself, one little tiny 50 lumen headlamp, and pitch black. And I'm 20 yards off the bank. I'm really close to the bank. And I didn't even realize how shallow the water was where I was at. But I'm 20 yards off the bank. And just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I hear this. And I'm going to do my best impersonation of it. But all I hear is... My hair's still standing up. Look, my hair is standing up on my arms right now, just trying to mimic.
I can picture it when I hear you do that.
Oh my God. It was just the most, it sounded like it was coming from the volume of an elephant. Like the noise just like hit me and almost like reverberated through my body. It was so loud. and I immediately I think I didn't even have a GoPro or anything at that point. I had my phone, and I hit the video button and I hit video record, knowing I'm not going to see anything. I just wanted to hear if he was going to yell again. But I'm sitting there thinking in his canoe, I'm like, I have no clue what just made that noise. It is as black as it is behind me right now, and I can't see anything. And I waited probably about 3 or 4 minutes, and I realized I can't see anything. I need to get out of here. So I pulled up my anchor, and I realized I'm in 4 feet of water. This thing could have walked over and grabbed me if it wanted. There is no, and when you're in a canoe with a paddle, there is no hightailing your ass out of there quick. Okay, like oh shit, I'm out of here, and I left as fast as I could. But the power of the vocalization that this thing threw at me, like I said, it felt like it reverberated through my body. It just went right through me. It was so loud. It was not like two animals fighting. It sounded like something yelled at me in a different language. And that is when I realized they're here and these things are real. And at that point, I started taking things more seriously every time I went out there. And like the fishing started becoming secondary to getting these experiences and so forth. I can honestly say I've had at least 50 or 60 experiences on this lake alone. I know they're there. I've actually thought about, I could take groups of people, and like they pay me to take them out on these trips and stuff, and I could take them right into their living rooms. But at the same time, I want to respect them. And they're there they're there because they want to be left alone. The last thing they want is a bunch of people coming into their neighborhood, which I think is every time I pull up there in a canoe or a boat or something like that, and they throw rocks at you and stuff. It's not that they don't like you or, they're trying to be, they're trying to hurt you. You're in their living room and they want you gone. I mean, it's simple as that. They're trying to be left alone. Which is why they're elusive as they are. They want to be by themselves. And so, I'll go there. I'll go there with my son. I'll be more than happy to take you out there.
We should mention that when Craig invited me, it was a year ago on Labor Day, or I think it was right around Labor Day when we went.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. We were out on the lake, a good part of the afternoon, and for some reason your boat started taking on water, and we ended up having to call it quits.
I think the boat was fixed. It was a simple. I had the wrong plug in.
I felt so bad for you because you were so excited about going, and you were hoping to have an encounter with me, and I felt really bad that happened.
No, we definitely need to do it again. I'd be honored to take you out there and see what we can come up with.
I'd love to go again. Yeah.
So
let's do it. All
right, absolutely. Paul, what else can I tell you? Man, I admire what you're doing with your site. I'm tickled to death to see all the people that you're coming in contact with, all the people that are, sharing their experiences with you and so forth. I admire what you're doing. I really do.
And that's why I wanted to share because, all the experiences you've had even around Clark County, and because a lot of people think it's always on the east side of Ohio. There's not really anything going on our side, but that's not true. It's just seem like they're harder to come across on our side because I don't think they stay in any one spot.
I'm not sure what I believe as far as whether they stay in one spot or whatever. I do feel like when I go back to places, it seems like I'm still seeing signs that they're there. There of what I'm aware of, this is to the best of my abilities, of what I've been able to find, locate, talk to people, and so forth. Between CJ Brown Reservoir, which is on the east side of Springfield, all the way over to Germantown. Now, Germantown, Ohio, has always had what they call the Germantown Howler.
Yeah.
Now, I personally know somebody that lives over there, and their property butts up against the Germantown, the nature preserve that's there. And they said that there's a family of Bigfoot that live there, and they see them actually quite a bit. In fact, that they've actually fed them, they leave food out for them, and so forth. Now, there's this girl that I know. She's a very, very good friend of mine. I asked her one time where her family lived at, and it was her parents, and her parents had lived there for 20 years, but they said that these things had lived there longer than they had. She would never give me the actual address, and I respect that 1,000,000%. I really do. But she said she has seen them literally standing in her driveway when she was a kid. She saw one standing in her driveway. It was 8 foot tall.
Did she think they looked human?
I don't think I ever asked her what it. I mean, I just asked her. She said it was like 8 foot tall, big, hairy, and she said they see them all the time. And she said that they would see the juvenile. There was a juvenile one that they would see more often. But she said that they always disappeared for like 4 months out of the year. And it was usually like November to like March, excuse me, that they were gone. And she didn't know if they hibernated or if they migrated or whatever, but they would always just disappear for about 4 months, and then they'd show right back up again, the next spring. So I don't know if they live there. I don't know. I'm not sure what,
Something I just remembered I was going to mention earlier when you were talking about Inglewood. When I was in high school or right out of high school, there was a friend of mine. I went to Brookville, and he was telling me that he was over there at Inglewood Dam hiking around through the trails, and he went off the trail into the woods a little ways, and he went back in there to smoke a joint with a friend of his, and they were back there, and he was leaning on this big rock smoking this joint, and he looked down and he noticed it was a cave. So he was telling me about it, and from his description of it and everything, I went back and I actually found it where he's talking about. It was two really big rocks. I mean, these are big rocks. I mean, half of a size of a car, two of them, and they were real close together. And where they came together at the base of them, it was a big hole right there. And I actually got down. There was a ledge down in there, and I could see it. So I stepped down into there onto the ledge, and I could see it drop down more. And I had a friend with me. I had him give me a rock, and I dropped it down. It sounded like it dropped about 8 foot or so and hit. And it sounded like it was in a big area. I didn't have a light with me or anything. I didn't have a cell phone back then or anything. So I wasn't really prepared. And then I went back again a few years later, was going to try to explore it, and I couldn't find it. Because they move them trails every so often. They reroute them and stuff. And I couldn't find where it was.
I think what I've between the east side of Clark County all the way over to Germantown, there are several, like you have Inglewood Reserve, you have Taylorsville Dam, which is above Huber Heights, you have George Rogers Clark Park, which is right off Route 4. There are
Charleston Falls.
I believe, from what I personally have, just from the areas that I've been in and so forth, I think that I've found what I believe is possibly like 6 families of them that live between, CJ Brown Reservoir and Germantown. There could be more there, or they could be just traveling, across areas or something like that. But there's literally like possibly 2 or 3 families of them within, just 15, 20 miles of where I'm at right now. There's one that there's a just one of the most amazing tree breaks I've ever seen. And I had to ask everybody that lived in that area, did you guys break this tree right here on the side of the road? And every one of the family, no, we have no idea. But I knew as soon as I saw it, this was a tree break. This was not an accident or anything like that. And so I found the owner of the property, and I asked him, can I go down in there? I believe that, it's hard to explain to somebody, hey, can I go into your property? I think you have a family of Bigfoot living there.
Yeah.
So he was very hesitant at first, but then he also opened up that his dad, who owned the property for 70 years prior to that, always believed that he felt like he was being watched when he was down in this area. The son, the guy's son, also said he felt like he's heard stuff that was down in this area. So the guy reluctantly let me walk down into this area with him, and I went with him, his father, and his son. So it was me and 3 generations on this family that went down in there. We found.
Where is this at? What area? I mean, not specifically. I'm Springfield.
How about Lawrence? Yeah, Springfield, Lawrenceville. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering what general area.
Yeah, 300 people, and it's like 5 miles from here. But we went down in there, and this guy's probably, there's a couple 100 acres that he has that is just nothing but woods. And so we all walked down in there, and not only did we find a bunch of tree breaks and so forth, me and the father, we actually found a footprint. It was a smaller one. It was only about 13 inches, but it was clear as day, and it was. He
knows what it was.
He saw it. Oh, he saw it before I did, and he immediately goes, "Hey, come here. Is this a footprint?" And then we looked at it. We were like, "Oh my God, that's a footprint." It probably was castable, but the guy's son was like, "Hey, we're out of here. Come on, we're leaving." So, like at that point, I had to head off with him and so forth. But the dad obviously was very well aware that there's something down here. But yeah, this is right in the middle of Clark County. So they're everywhere. They're elusive, but they're everywhere. They're just.
Well, that's always been my
theory, man.
We got 3 rivers coming into Dayton area right there, Stillwater, Miami, the Mad River, and heavily wooded on either side all the way down. And then you got all these farmers that has, they might have 500 acres and 100 or more of it's woods that they never go in. They just farm the area around it, and that land just sits there. That's where I think that they move around, but I think they stay in those areas.
Yeah. But man, when I started this endeavor 10 years ago, I never in my life would have believed that they were, right in our area. I would have never believed that, but I feel as though almost every state park, every nature preserve, every protected area of wildlife, they have the ability to be in. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that you can't hunt in these areas, so they feel safe. There's a lot of these areas you can't even get into, so they feel safe.
Yeah. Military bases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the Huffman Reserve is a small metro park right next to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It used to be open when we were kids. It was open. You could drive down in there. There's a little lake down in there. Fishing sucked, but it was just a really cool little park that everybody would drive down in, and everybody's throwing frisbees and all that kind of stuff. And about 10 years ago, they boarded it off, and the whole thing grew up into literally a big set of woods. But you can't take any vehicles down in there anymore. You have to park up at the top of the hill. You can walk down in there all you want, but it's almost like all the trails and stuff are almost like gone because nobody goes down there. It's really not. it's not next to an area that like you have some of your other metro parks that are like near Centerville, or there's a lot of people that go to these metro parks. This happens to be a metro park that not a lot of people go to,
That's
and yet
my
I've gone
kind of park then.
so I've gone down into there. There's a lot of tree breaks in there. There's like teepee pilings and stuff like that, and it's literally right up against the military base. And so it makes me wonder if they actually cut that area off because there was a sighting there or something. Did they block it off?
But you can still go there.
You can go there, but you have to walk down into it. You can't drive down into it like you used to be able to.
Maybe that's where I'll go Monday. I was going to go for a hike Monday because I'm off.
Yeah,
and maybe I'll check that out.
Huffman Reserve on Route 4. Yeah, it got blocked off several years back. It's just grown up it's just all overgrown now. It's really hard to get down in there. You can't see like long distances or anything like that because it's so thick. But yeah, absolutely. You can see there's tree breaks and there's signs. I haven't found any footprints, but that literally is 5 minutes from where I grew up. And I used to ride my bike down there all the time, and I hung out down there as a kid. And, I never had any experiences, but since they blocked it off, I would take my dog down there and run because I know there's nobody down there. And that happened to be how I found out about it. I was taking my dog down there and I started seeing these tree breaks and I was just like, wow, I just can't believe that
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. But, so
last week I went to Brookville because I grew up in Brookville, and there's a park, Sycamore State Park. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Absolutely.
It's 2,000 acres. I didn't realize it was that big. Yeah. And the trail, when I walk the trails, the trails go for several miles, and it's really thick. I mean, you couldn't go off the trail unless you had a machete or something because it's impenetrable on either side. So anybody I don't think people go out there very often, but when they do, they're not going off the trail. They're staying right on the trail all the time. So
you might have to cut this out of the video. But Sycamore State Park is it's right outside of, it's south of Inglewood. My ex-father-in-law used to be the park ranger of Sycamore, of that area. This was before I ever knew about Bigfoot. I never asked him. He never said anything, but I knew that he used to be the park ranger of Sycamore State Park. Only because, like I said, he was my father-in-law. My in-laws lived, just down the road from there. And I would actually hunt down there because you can bow hunt down there during bow hunting season. But I back then I didn't have any experience with Bigfoot or anything like that, so I never really paid attention to it. But yeah, it is several thousand acres. It's a couple thousand acres, and there's nothing out there. There's one tiny little pond, but that's it. And it's in an area.
There's a creek. Wolf Creek runs through there.
Wolf Creek runs through it.
Yeah.
But I never thought about it until afterwards, realizing that that's such a secluded area also.
See, they were going to make that into like Caesar's Creek. They were going to dam up Wolf Creek and make that into a big lake. And the people fought it because Diamond Mill Road runs north and south through there. And Diamond Mill would have been underwater and people would have had to drive around the lake. And that's like everybody uses that road going north and south. So they fought it and they didn't end up doing it.
My in-laws lived on Diamond Mill Road. They lived at the corner of Diamond Mill and Westbrook.
My mom and dad lived right there, just off Westbrook on Diamond Mill.
Yes, that's exactly where. Hell, they might know each other. We'll have to talk about it off camera.
Well, one thing I was going to tell you, when I was in high school, somebody told me about this house. It was an old farmhouse out there I don't know how well you know that area. Saybold Road.
Yep.
Seybold.
Yes.
Saybold. There's an old farmhouse out there, and they told me about it that it was abandoned. So me and a friend of mine, we went out there, and they had a cable across the lane, so you couldn't drive back. But we parked there at the edge of the lane, and we walked quite a ways back. It's a pretty long lane that goes all the way back, and then there's a barn there, and where the barn is, and you see the sidewalk that goes over to where the house is. Well, we went in there and we walked all around in the house, just checked it out, and we just thought it was something fun to do. It was kind of spooky. It was after a football game. So then, like a couple weeks later, I was telling some other friends about it, and they're like, well, let's go check it out. I said, all right, I'll take you out there. So we all went out. I think there was about 5 of us. We had 2 cars, and we parked there. We walked all the way back to where the barn was, where the sidewalk was that goes over to where the house is. And I said, well, let's go check it out. And they were all like scared to go. And I was just there like 2 weeks earlier, so no big deal. I was like, well, I'll go first. And I started walking down the sidewalk toward the house, and they all waited back there at the barn. And as I'm walking up toward the house, the sidewalk's a little ways before you get to the house. And I'm walking up the sidewalk. I had the flashlight still in my pocket, and I see what looks like a person come out of the house, walking right toward me, come down the steps off the porch, walking right toward me. And I'm freaking out. So I'm trying to hurry up and get the flashlight out. And it was one of them old, with the D batteries that it's probably like 3 lumens, that's hardly any light. So anyway, I hurried up, got the flashlight out, and turned it on. And when I turned it on, it sounded like at least 3 people running through the leaves in different directions. I never saw anybody. I was shining the light, looking around, and I couldn't see anybody, but I could hear footsteps going in like 3 different directions. And everybody else was back at the barn. They didn't even come out there. But, I just thought, well, it was a person in there doing drugs, or I don't know what they were doing. But now, thinking about it, I'm wondering maybe it was a juvenile. Could have been in that house and come out. I don't know.
Man.
No light.
If it was a ghost, then I would have been out of there faster than that. I have a buddy of mine that's like, I told him, I said, I want to take you out to this place. I'm having Bigfoot experiences. And he was like, I don't want to do that. He goes, why don't we find a haunted house? And I was like, no, first of all, look, if I see something, I don't want it to disappear and then show up behind me. Okay. I want to be able to, at least I feel like Bigfoot is flesh and blood and not,
it's a little safer than doing a haunted house.
Man, I don't know, man. I'd rather experience a 10-foot Bigfoot than a ghost by any means. That's all I'm not a ghost person.
Yeah, me either.
I'm not a ghost person. Oh, Paul, we're gonna have to get together, man. We're
all right. Let me go ahead and wrap this up. We'll call it a night for our show, and maybe we'll do a part 2 after you and your son go back. Maybe something will happen.
Fair enough, man. I promise you, if anything happens, you're gonna be the first person I call, man.
All right. Well, I'm going to post this in my group, and I'll post your video with Linda Eastburn with it too. So I appreciate you coming on, Craig, and sharing. And,
I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me. It's an honor to be able to tell my story to you. Look, all I can do is tell the truth, and hopefully, word gets out.
Yep. All right.
All right. I take care. I will see you soon. You take care. All right.
Bye.
Thank you, Paul.